What is up, team, and welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to show you how I booked 13 qualified sales calls in just 1 week for my agency. And I'll be running through the exact multi-channel strategy that I use because I'm not just using one medium or one channel to book in my calls. And if you want to have a really full calendar and a really fat pipeline, then you need to be using multiple channels of outreach to bring in those calls. If you focus on just one, yeah, that's great, you can master it, but you won't be getting the same volume of calls. You won't be filling up your pipeline in the same way as if you were to use a multiple channel outreach method. Now, as you can see here, this is a screenshot of my calendar actually this week, and I screenshotted it just this morning. So I've booked 13 calls into my calendar this week. It's filling up as I progress through the week. Yesterday I booked in an extra 3 calls into the calendar, so today I could book even more calls in. But so far, and as of this moment, I have 13 calls in my calendar, and I have another 8 to go through over the course of today, this afternoon, and tomorrow. Would have been 14, but one of them cancelled over there, but that's just how it goes. So that's the 13 calls that I booked in my calendar. Now I want to show you the method and how I actually managed to do that, and I've broken it down into 5 points here. The firstly here is knowing your ICP. Secondly, I'm going to be running through the channels that I used. Third, the volume that I used to actually get this amount of calls. Fourth, I'm going to be running through the script that I've used to actually book these calls. And 5, I'm going to be running through how I actually got them onto a call once I've got a positive response from them. So number 1 here, this is know your ICP. And this is something I talk about a lot, but I think it's really, really important. Knowing who you're reaching out to is probably and arguably the most important factor in cold outreach after the technical side. You can break cold email down into 2 parts. The technical sort of scientific side of setting up the domains, making sure deliverability is on point, etc. And then the other side, which is more of the art, which is the art of the copywriting and eliciting a positive response, getting people on a call. So there's 2 factors to cold email and cold outreach that you have to take into account: the technicals and the sort of copy side of things. So in my opinion, knowing your ICP is arguably the most important factor in cold outreach on that artistic level, because once you know who they are, you know what their business bottleneck is, you can write cold email and cold outreach that targets those specific pain points. So for example, if you're running Facebook ads, a really, really saturated service offering to e-commerce brands, they don't need Facebook ads as a medium. That's just a service. They don't need that service. What they need is more front-end traffic because they can't scale. They're not getting new customers in. That's their pain point. And alongside this as well, email marketing is another sort of saturated outreach service that, people are reaching out to e-com brands and SaaS companies, etc. They don't need email marketing. They need to retain their customers, increase their lifetime value because they're unprofitable on the first purchase. There's loads of different pain points that you can use to target your ICP, but understanding who your ICP is first and understanding who they are, what they are, their hopes, their desires, their loves, their hates, and finding out what their business bottleneck is can really help you to write effective cold email. So for example, for me, my ICP is B2B business owners who struggle to book in qualified sales calls. Their pain is that they can't scale and that they're forced to work with bad clients and that they lack frame on sales calls due to a scarcity mindset. If they're only booking in 2 or 3 calls a month, then they're almost forced to do their best on a sales call to convince those 2 or 3 people to work with them, which makes them look weak, which makes them lose frame on a sales call. And it means that they end up working with crappy clients that are just bad for them, bad for their company, and keep them down. Whereas if they had a full calendar full of qualified leads, they wouldn't need to be needy on a call. They wouldn't need to have that pressure to close, which again makes them seem more attractive in terms of the client mindset, and it means they're much more likely to close. And they can also pick the clients that they work with. So I make it impossible not to scale by booking an unreasonable number of calls into their calendar. So I target their pain points within that first email itself and with my cold email and with my cold outreach. So secondly here, this is the channels that I use, and I've actually broke down the calls via channel. So number 1 here, and the most successful one, is cold email. That got me 7 calls. I launched a brand new campaign about 2 weeks ago, and it's going through about the 2nd or 3rd part of the sequence that I'm sending out right now. So we're getting a lot more replies in, a lot more positive replies, and it's going really well. So this week we managed to book 7 calls of cold email. LinkedIn outreach brought me in 3 calls. And also we got 3 calls from inbound as well, and I broke that down into 1 call from YouTube, 1 call from my Twitter account, and 1 call from word of mouth. This is just looking at what I can see on the Calendly and what people have said on the Calendly of where these people are coming from. So quite interesting to see there. Obviously cold email is the most successful at the moment, but it's nice to see that LinkedIn's coming up there as well and starting to generate some inbound leads as well because of the multi-channel outreach methods that I'm using with these videos, with my Twitter, and those sort of things. You know, if I can get more inbound calls, that's absolutely fantastic. Now, thirdly here, we've got volume. You know, if we're looking here at LinkedIn, first of all, one second, let me just put this on the same page. There we go. So you can see LinkedIn here. You know, when I was starting my new outreach campaign about 2 weeks ago, I scraped about 2,300 prospects within my ICP. Currently, you know, we're just running through this campaign now. It's been live for about 2 weeks. I've got a 10.3% acceptance rate, which is not great, but you know, it's still working. A 13% reply rate, which again is okay. And I have no idea what the meeting book rate is because I'd have to run through all of the replies that I got on LinkedIn, and I just don't have time for that. So, but it's booking in some calls. It's successful, and LinkedIn so far, prior to this campaign, has been one of my most successful ways of booking in calls. So if you're not using cold outreach on LinkedIn, then you're missing out on booking in some really, really great calls. Now, alongside that as well, we've got cold email. I scraped 2,300 leads-ish, and we've contacted 1,500 prospects so far. And again, as I mentioned, we're about a second or the third part of the sequence that we're sending out. We've booked eight meetings booked so far. We'll see what it turns out to across the entire campaign. And you know, this is a 0.5 meet and book rate, so it's okay. It's not the best, but you know, as we move through that, as we move through the sequences and we move through this campaign, we're hopefully going to see that meet and book rate increase as we get a larger sense of what the data is looking like. And then, as I mentioned, inbound, I've made one YouTube video, so it's taken me one YouTube video to get one qualified inbound lead from that one. Now, my script, you know, it's really, really simple. As I always preach with cold email, making it simple, short and simple is the best way to get replies. So this script here is literally just hi, first name, would 2 to 4 qualified sales calls per week be beneficial to the business name? Cheers, Tom. That's it. Really, really simple. And I'm finding that this elicits, you know, really good positive replies. Or even if it's not positive, it gets me a negative reply, but I'm still getting a reply, which is great for my domain health and just great for the campaign in general. I'm getting a good understanding of what people are wanting to hear and what they're resonating with. So again, really, really, really simple there. And as I mentioned, whatever your service is, try and break it down into the simplest form possible and start off your cold email sequence with a single question. As you move down the sequences and into email 2, 3, 4, 5, you can start to expand a little bit more, put some case studies in there, etc., etc. But for me right now, I'm finding that the one line and the one sentence cold email is absolutely killing it. But yeah, test out different things, see what works for you. And finally here, this is how to respond to get them on a call. So I'll just take you over into my account right now. And as you can see, this is one of the prospects that I booked onto a meeting. You can see that I sent them over 2 emails, which is that would the 2 to 4 extra qualified sales calls be beneficial to your business? And then the second follow-up here, which is, as you can read right there. And then they said, would you mind sending over some information? And I said, you know, as a soft call to action, is this of interest to you? Would you mind sending over some more information? I then followed up with a short response here. Of course, I use cold email, much like we are now, to book calls with qualified prospects that match your ideal client profile. When set up correctly, it's a powerful way to fill up your pipeline. And then I asked for a little bit of time in their calendar, are you open to a call to discuss more? So I'm not saying, you know, let's jump on a call. I'm asking them, are they open? Why wouldn't they be open to finding out how we can fill up their pipeline? And then he replied right there, sure, let's set up a Zoom. And then the classic, it's pretty much textbook here. How's Thursday or Friday? Great, send the invite. That's a meeting booked into the calendar. So yeah, really, really simple. And I think the more simple you can get it, the better results you will get out of these, out of your cold outreach. So yeah, that is how I booked 13 qualified calls in 1 week for my agency. It's quite simple, but it really boils down to knowing your ICP, having lots of volume, and just going for it. Yeah. So if you've got any questions, let me know in the comments. And if not, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, and I'll be posting loads more videos on this channel with you know, things about cold outreach, things about cold email, things about cold LinkedIn. I'll be dropping as much value as I can and just my journey with building a lead gen agency on this channel. So if you're interested, hit the subscribe, hit the like, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.